Looks good, Larry.
Yeah, just give a second and we'll get the library. Okay, you can go ahead.
All right, great. Well, I will officially call the work session of the Village Board of Trustees to order for Wednesday, February 16th, 2022. Mostly budget workshop and then some village priorities as well. So we're starting with the budget workshop and specifically with the library.
Yep. So give me a second to have our
Library board.
attendees. Yep.
Or
Larry, you're going to let Laura in?
Yes, I
Oh,
did that, and there she is. And
yep, there we go. Thanks. So,
I did it for Heather also, but she hasn't popped up yet. So maybe she has to press a button or something, but I'll try it one more time.
It takes a little bit to get.
There we go. Yeah, there we go. Okay, good.
Hi, Rosemary.
Hello, everybody.
Hey guys, welcome.
Oh, there.
Thank you.
All right.
Sorry, we were a few minutes late. That was on me.
Hello, Laura.
I blame the MTA.
I was just worried that there was something else I had to do. I'm sitting here, but I thought, no, it's
No.
just gotta wait.
There's Heather as well. Hi, Heather. Yeah.
Okay. Brenda, you want to get started? And
Sure, we can start that. Yeah. But we worked on the budget together. And before we, talk about the library happenings and what they've been up to this past year, we started off in a very favorable position because we were able to, we had budgeted for an additional medical policy. And we're able to eliminate it going forward because the new hire did not select to use the village medical plan. So a policy runs about 30,000, the buyout is about 5,000. So we were starting off with a decrease of about $25,000 in the library budget. So that being said, that was the starting point, right? And then from there, the library was reviewing their various lines. So they do have requests, but it was a great point to start with at that level. So I'll turn everything over really to Rosemary, our library director, and she can go over the requests that are being made. We have it in the same format here that we've had the other departments. It's a synopsis of the significant changes first, and that's followed by, you can see the detail in each of the budgetary lines. So,
Well, I think Laura usually speaks instead of me on this, but I just very quickly just put in here that most of our requests really overall have to do with an anticipation in increase in inflation, so increased prices for various things like books and supplies, and also need to increase our ebook spending because that is becoming a larger and larger part of what we do, and that's a very expensive area to collection to populate actually.
okay.
Hey, Laura, you're muted.
Let me see.
Okay, am I there?
That's good.
Okay, sorry. I wanted to start off by thanking the board for allowing us to hire a full-time employee last year. We moved Patty Vano, our part-time clerk, into a full-time position, which has just been terrific in terms of her knowledge and the time-saving factors associated with having one person overseeing billing and a lot of ordering rather than, parceling it out to various employees. So we'd like to thank you for that. She's really been a great addition. So most of our increases are just the 2% increase every year. An addition in longevity, which is for our full and part-time employees who have 8 or more years of service. And as Rosemary mentioned, most of our additions are due to inflationary thoughts. Supplies going up $1,500, Books going up $20,000 in total. We figured we would do 10,000 for the regular paper books, and then 10,000 for the electronic books, which are, as Rosemary noted, an increasing part of our circulation, particularly with the pandemic. Publicity and printing is our website enhancements, which our website is really well trafficked, which is wonderful. The contracts is Westlinks, which is the contracts with the other libraries in the Westchester library system. And we don't have any control over that. That's set by WLS. And then repairs and maintenance, we have a general increase of $3,000, although we've been doing pretty well on that, as Heather has noted in our monthly meetings. And as Brenda noted, the retirement system decreased
A
healthcare.
decrease. That's not an increase. It was a decrease.
Oh, no,
in-
decreased. Healthcare
Right.
and retirement decreased.
Right.
And the debt service, $114. We'll take it. So things that are really our state of the library. Rosemary had asked the librarians to let her know what were their most popular offerings. And what she noted is during the pandemic, the collaboration that we've had with community organizations has just been phenomenal. From the Irvington Shakespeare Company with the Historical Society to do the Legends exhibit. The town of Greenburgh, Meals on Wheels, did Thanksgiving cards. And also with the other Westchester libraries, we participated in Book Yaya, which is Delawne Michelle's online version of her former spoken interludes author readings. And also David Allen Sibley, a noted bird guide expert, did a presentation, and the libraries and other organizations participated, and they reached their maximum limit of 500 people, which was amazing. And then a very new one, which Rosemary would probably like to expand on, is Learning Together Irvington, which is a parent group, just started a chess club at the library, which has just taken off with gangbusters. And then for the children's programs, of course, most of them were virtual. Instead of having the sleepover slumber party for the stuffed animals, it became a camp where they were there for 5 days. And Carolyn does a wonderful video of the whole process, and that was terrific, which we can send you Zoom links if you're interested. They also had Zoom Tales, Tales, and Tales, Tails, with dog guests. And the children read to the dogs, and the dogs did tricks. And Carolyn brought back her story walk. She did it in front of the library this year, which was another successful event. And then for young adults, Linda has been really great over the last couple of years at increasing our involvement with the young adult group. And so one of her particular areas of expertise is grab and go craft kits, and that also attracts not just the young adults, but some adults as well. So that was really great. And they also noted that being able to use the Pam Strong Memorial Reading Garden for outdoor events has gone really well. So Rosemary, did you have more to add about the programs?
Well, I just thought I'd mention just very quickly this collaboration with Learning Together Irvington is a very new. I mean, we've been working on it for a couple of months now, but the chess club has met for 2 weeks now, and it's a chess club and chess instruction, which is nice for 2 levels of play for children. I think we capped that one at 12 years old. So there's the sort of beginner, moderate beginner, and then a slightly more advanced class. We have a teacher that comes in and is coaching them, and they're going to after 6 weeks of 6 weeks of weekly sessions, we're going to actually have a simultaneous game with a lecture by a young chess master. I think he's 14, 15, and he just published a book. So it's really very exciting, something for the kids to look to and see, this really can be something that their age group can be prolific with or proficient with. And so that's really great. And it's maxed. We set the limits, I think, at 12 or 15, and we have a waiting list for every class. So hoping to expand that in the future, because obviously there's an interest, and there's talk about possibly setting up a debate club for middle schoolers. That's the next step that we're trying to figure out all the mechanics of how to do. One other thing that we do offer to our students, which I guess benefits everybody, is that during exam weeks, so well, it wasn't in January because they canceled the Regents exams, but when the AP exams come in May, when the Regents exams come in June, we will have extended hours at the library. So we will we'll be open until 9 o'clock Monday and Wednesday, in addition to Tuesday and Thursday, to give the kids more time to be able to study, to be able to maybe do group work, and to consult with a librarian if they have any last minute questions. So that's another thing that we offer. And it's funny because we have students coming in, and we actually, we'll buy pizza for them too, and things, to just encourage them in their work. But it's I would say the nights that we're open that late, we see about as many adults as teens. A lot of people do like having those extended hours to be able to work on the computers and to pick up their books. So it's a nice little bonus to the community that we offer. Again, student-centric, but it benefits everybody.
And I just wanted to mention that we do have, as always, some outstanding building issues that we have been working on. We had that severe rainstorm in July, which caused flooding in the tenant vestibule above the reading room, leading to leaks. And then September's Hurricane Ida wound up even dumping more water in that area. And we lost about $10,000 worth of large print and material and mystery books, as well as ruining our practically brand new carpet tiles. So we are working with insurance right now to address those issues. There's a new insurance adjuster because Chip Dale, who was our longtime insurance adjuster, died unexpectedly of COVID in the fall. So Larry and the new adjuster were down a couple weeks ago, and we went through things. And the last outstanding issue, which was we had been working on with Chip, was the book replacement costs in the children's room from the initial summer of 2020, our first COVID summer, where we discovered mold in that area. And so we're working on being reimbursed for $28,000 worth of children's books that we've replaced. So once that's done, our book budget will also look a lot healthier. Does anybody have any questions?
I guess the only question I have is kind of a technical one. How does it work with the ebooks? Like, do you buy like a certain, and I think we went over this last year, but I think you buy a certain number that you can lend out, say 3 of them or something like that. Is that how it works? Or can you just walk us through how ebooks work?
Well, unfortunately, there are several different models. It depends on the publishers. It's a very uneven surface right now, and to the point where legislatures are getting involved trying to help regulate how ebooks are sold, because it's all very confusing, and right now very, very beneficial for the publishers and not necessarily so beneficial for us. I mean, you might think of a ebook, let's say the latest James Patterson might be one of your credits on Audible. So that's your $15.99 a month. So you figure it's going to be an under $20 expense. For me to purchase in the library, it's going to be $90. And sometimes it's even as high as $120. And again, I'm not sure where they arrive with this pricing. That will allow for one circulation at a time. which can be either 7 or 14 days, depending on what people want, or you can return them early. So basically 1 circulation at a time, and with a cap of 24 circs, and then it disappears out of our collection and we have to purchase it again. So that is what happens for a lot of things. There are some publishers that will let you buy a book, and when you buy it, it's yours, just like a regular book, a regular physical book. But it's really kind of a little bit of everything. So, and what we do, we purchase most of ours from a company called Overdrive, which is a Rakuten company, and they have sales. They have promotions. We try as much as we can. As soon as we see that there's a sale on young adult collections, we make sure that we stock up on that, or the children's collections. I'd say a good third of our circulation is for children and young adults. So we really, and well, that I can see. Apparently, we also circulate a lot to the schools, but I don't see those circulations, those statistics for some reason. I was very surprised when those were shared with me at some point, to see that our circulation is even more than I thought it was. But that aside, it's basically, it's a little hard to describe, but we do what we can in purchasing what people will be able to, people want, and keeping it in circulation. The entire consortium actually is purchasing books for this way, and we do share a bit. When I buy that Patterson book, it will fill the holds for Irvington card holders first, and then if I have 24 circulations on that, and let's say only 6 people in Irvington want to see it, the remaining ones will be used by people in the rest of the consortium. So that's kind of the way that we contribute, and we receive back from the other libraries to keep everybody getting the books they want.
I have 2 questions. First, I want to say, thank you. One of my favorite memories from Irvington with my daughter, who's now 13, was when she was probably 3 or 4, and we went to the sleepover, the stuffed animal sleepover, which I literally had no idea. And then I remember going back in the morning to see that video, and I was like, this is literally the best thing ever. So just super impressed with that. And, my own family spends a lot of time at the library. So thank you all for what you do, because it's really important. I just have 2 questions. One is, sort of how do you choose books? Because I just know, I have a middle schooler now, and sort of the books, that she likes, and I really would like to borrow some of those books from the library. And I guess if I'm spending money, I'm happy to spend it on books, but I'm just wondering how you guys choose books. And then also, I've participated in several book clubs from the Dobbs Ferry Library, and then also Ardsley. Do you guys do book clubs? That I haven't seen necessarily.
I'll answer that last one first, because it's easiest. We have a Thursday, it's called the Thursday Book Club. They meet the 3rd Thursday of every month, and the information about what they're reading is on the website. If you can't find it easily on the website, go to the calendar and just look for them, and it's also mentioned in our newsletter, which you can sign up for our newsletter on our website as well, if you're not already receiving it. How do we choose books? There are several different ways. There are professional journals that we receive, that we review, and that will tell, and things like Publishers Weekly that tells us for the bestsellers, but for other things too, Kirkus and other journals and Library Journal will give us ideas of what has been published, and it's reviewed by librarians, and recommendations are made. We also get School Library Journal, which helps with buying children's and young adult materials. There's also, we also go by recommendations. A couple of things, when things are in the library catalog and people put holds on them, as soon as there are 3 holds on an item from our card holders, we get a notification that we have 3 or more holds for this, so we need to purchase another copy, or a copy if we didn't purchase one already. So that's sort of a way that the people let us know what they want. And then there are also there's also an interesting organization called the Bureau of Educational Research, and I remember them. They've been around for a while. When I was a children's librarian back in the 90s, I would go to their sessions, and they had some really good recommendations. I mean, basically they just read and review books, and then they give you go for a 1-day session, and all they do is talk about books, everything in children's literature, what's new in children's literature, what's new in YA literature. And it's an entire day of discussing books and their themes and what to have. You leave with a book. They used to give you a book that was like a small phone book, just filled with recommendations of books to purchase. And with their summaries and discussing why they were recommended. So knowing your population, you would know which ones you might be more likely to get. So between all of those things, and also, frankly, just a patron walking in and saying, I just read about this book. I just saw this in the New York Times, which, we also see those too. I just read about this in the Times or the Washington Post or whatever other paper. And I think this sounds like a really great book. Can you get it for me? And, we will either get it from another library, or we will be like, hey, if you want it, I'll bet 6 other people at Irvington want it too. So we'll order it then. So there's a variety of ways that we choose.
Any other questions? It's always nice when the bottom line is a decrease in a budget item. I don't think we see that too often. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, I just, very recently, met Rosemary, I was just really impressed with the way the library ran when I came for a visit, and I got a tour, and it's good to see that the budget is so sound, and as far as like some of the damage and stuff that they reported, it really is amazing that keeps happening again and again in that space, and I think it's something that they're doing an amazing job dealing with. It's overwhelming how much has been lost, and but yeah, I just think it just seems they keep bouncing back, and it's such an important thing for the community. And I'm really happy to be the liaison to the library, and I'm supporting their request. So,
Thank you.
Okay. There were no changes on the revenue side because the vast majority of the budget is supported by taxes. So there are very few other opportunities for revenue. So there were no changes to the revenue side, except for there will be a lower, if this is adopted the way it is, it'll be a decrease in the levy that's towards the library budget. Okay.
great. Well, thanks for putting it all together, and thanks for coming in. We always enjoy getting updates as well. Especially on the e-books, it's, I guess, I'm hopeful maybe by next year we'll get, it's more straightforward and cheaper perhaps as it gets more mainstream, but I'm not hopeful because it seems like they're doing well on that. And I feel like they're afraid they're losing out on it. So maybe that's their way of trying to recapture some revenue or something, who knows, but appreciate all the hard work, and thanks very much for coming in tonight, even if it's virtually.
That's it.
Thank you.
Well, next year, hopefully in person. That would be nice.
Hopefully.
That'll be good. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Well, next up, I believe we have the theater budget. I see Greg Allen sitting in the audience.
Yep.
And now coming up on stage.
Mary.
Appropriate.
Hello. Happy New Year to the board. I haven't seen you guys this year yet. And nice to meet Arlene. I know Mitch, so congrats to you both for joining this group. So as this is a budget meeting, we're not requesting anything since we've been closed for 2 years. The only thing you'll notice on our budget line was the regular yearly salary increases, and that was the only thing that Brenda and I had on there.
That was it.
But I still want to come in and talk revenue with everyone. Let me just move this here so I can see everybody's faces because they just moved. Okay, now I can see everybody. We've spent months really investigating rental rates around Westchester County. And we know we're still not close to what the others charge when people want to go and rent from them. So with all the changes happening in the theater while we're closed, we really find this is a perfect time to raise those rates. because that's a great way for us to be able to bring in more revenue. But besides that, the higher rates are also going to pay for staffing that usually I know we would come to the board and ask, hey, we need so much money for this new staffing. I instead want to try it out for a few years to show the importance of it before we actually come back to the village. And we've worked for months to figure out a way to work this into these new rental rates. Basically, what would happen is it's going to go a long way in showing and presenting us in such a professional theater way to patrons as they come in the door. They will see IT staff as they walk in the door, branded with a t-shirt, and they will know they're in Irvington Theater and not getting confused with whatever rental company may be renting at that time. It's something we've always run into problems with in the past. Hey, I thought I was at Broadway Training Center. No, you're at the Irvington Theater. They're one of our arts partners and they've rented here. So what we've always supplied the box office manager. This time we will do the front of house manager, which is huge for that to be an IT person, because that's the person that the patrons and people are going to come in contact with. The ushers, as well as a tech staff person that will be in the building every time someone else is in that building. This will do away with, you got to run to the police station and get the keys to get in the door. It will also help us keep track of how much our partners that do have keys are actually in the building, because there are many times in the past they will go in and use the building and we have no way of knowing because they can just go pick up keys. So now a staff member will always be there when they're in the building and being able to assist them with things as well. So I want you all to know about this price increase because some of you possibly could get a call from a current arts partner complaining about the increase. But I will let you know that even with this increase, we've still kept theirs at a huge discount price from what just a regular new commercial rental or a nonprofit rental coming in off the street asking to rent our space would be paying. Those arts partners will still get a significant discount in what they would be paying, since we do count them as true partners. But we really worked out this great plan of how we can do that. I've gotten so many calls this past 6 months for people wanting to rent our space. I just keep pushing them off. I save their names, their contact info, so that the moment our doors are open, I can contact them and try to get more people in renting. All of this said, I'm not sure when we'll open. We're aiming for fall. I keep saying fall, but now I'm having to tell people they're trying to get on the calendar for fall. And I said, I'm not going to give you fall dates yet. I really can't do that until we have a contractor in place who can say to me, we're going to be able to, we're going to be done by this date and you can open here. The HVAC project, it's taking longer than we thought going into it. So I'm just not sure when that revenue portion, which is what brings us back to a revenue discussion, when that revenue will start coming in. It's completely crushed my soul that we're still not open. I will tell you, like, creatively, it's killed me. I'm trying everything I can to keep our name out there, to keep us going. But I'm slowly dying inside. So I can't wait for us to be able to open the door. And people are going to see new walls, new carpet, new sound system, have cold air, have ventilation where they can breathe. Like, there's so much we're going to be offering, and we're very excited about all of that. So that was my little spiel for a budget meeting.
I think the good thing is once you reopen, you won't have to close, like you won't have to shut down again for the summers, and it'll be, this is definitely, it's become medium-term pain for long-term gain here. But, I'm so excited about the project and can't wait to, see all the improvements from, as you say, from carpeting to air. So it's all very exciting. And I'm dying to get back in there too. And I've had a couple people reach out and say, hey, can I know about your theater. Can I come check it out? Like, not yet. But, and I do think that all the Irvington is everywhere stuff has been great. In some ways, I think we've reached new people that weren't aware of the theater. And it's been, I'm hoping we can all bring it back together. I do think that projects like the Irvington Shakespeare Company have helped as well. I think we've had, and I think the partnership with the rec department, frankly, has become it's unprecedented for those two groups to work so well together, and it's been great. Hats off to you and Joe, Greg. for working so well together, which really makes sense. There's a lot of synergies and a lot of, overlap, and it just makes so much sense. And it's been great to see it actually work so well. So we're excited about the
I'm
future.
appreciative of Joe for that. It was necessity. We needed space to do something, and it was a great way to work with him.
Yeah, but it's been, there's a lot of positives, and obviously the one negatives we've been closed. So the kind of, the bread and butter blocking and tackling hasn't been there, but there's been a ton of creativity, and we're so appreciative of all the hard work you've done keeping, as you say, the name out there. I can't wait looking for a ramp up, and the reopening celebration when that happens. So.
Larry, can you stop, or Brenda, can you stop sharing the screen so we can see each other again? Just because it's, I don't think the couple numbers are, So what I want to add is a couple things as a recent commissioner until a few months ago, and now as the liaison. One is I want to commend Greg for keeping the theater's name out there while the theater was closed. I mean, there's a short play reading series coming up at the end of the month, and to have an event like that, I'm sure we'll get a lot of attention. And really, it's been just unbelievably hard work and so important, and just hats off. I think that's just amazing. The one question I do have, though, is I'm a little confused. So can you give us a little bit more, why is it taking so long? Because we have the funding now, right? So, I mean, because when, the other theaters were able to open about a year ago, and we know we weren't able to because of the, because it was built in 1902 and had no HVAC system, so we couldn't put in the proper filters and stuff. And that's really put us behind an 8 ball, because so many other theaters have opened, and we don't exist right now, other than the amazing work Greg's doing to make us exist online. And over the summer, we can be outside having events outside, but that's not possible now. Can you just fill us in a little bit more on so what's going on? Why is it taking so long? If it's funded, why is it taking so long to get the HVAC system in?
We met this past fall. Larry, Ed, myself, Ryan Frame met with the design team. They came out to the theater. We sent them away to come up with a plan for us. They came up with one, but when they came back with it, it just didn't seem feasible to Ed. And Larry said for being on top of the building. So we came up with other places where the unit needs to live. And there's 2 choices. So we went back to them again they've come back now. There's pros and cons on that. So it comes down to us meeting to decide where this actual beast can live. And then I hope it will go quicker past that. Larry, can you add anything to that?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I think, this is a pretty significant engineering challenge to try to fit this type of equipment inside of an old historic building and do it in a way that doesn't compromise the building. I mean, there's ways you can just bull yourself through it and, kind of obliterate things. And we're trying not to do that, obviously. I don't think they're insurmountable. They're just delicate, and it's been taking time. And that's really what the challenge is.
Is there anything the board can do?
As far as the
I'm sorry, I thought you were done. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. No, and I should also add that although the funding's been earmarked, it actually hasn't been approved by the state yet. So the 2 grants that were awarded by the Dormitory Authority have not been awarded yet and signed off yet. You'll see those contracts, in fact, when we do have them. I've given them everything that they need, to move those forward, but that's the pace that they operate at. That doesn't mean anything other than we wouldn't be able to start construction until those are in place anyway. So, we're pushing in parallel, of course, but it's not that the money's just sitting there. So it's a little subtle difference.
Gotcha. Is there anything that the board can do to support Larry and support Greg to help this move forward? Is there any, and because it seems like, the faster that this part goes, it would obviously each day matters. You know what I mean? So is there anything the board can do to support that, or is it just a situation of letting it run its course?
We just need the time to get back and meet and make sure that all of our concerns are registered with the design team so that they can respond to that. That we have a meeting, that we're trying to get on the calendar in the next week or so, and hopefully that'll give a lot of good direction to the design team.
Okay. Well, obviously, I think I just if there's anything the board can do at any point, I would like to know about that because I think this is really important. But I just wanted to throw that out there. So thanks to both of you for all that information.
Yep.
Anything else?
I will do a
Otherwise,
song and dance because that's what I do.
cue the music. Great. Well, thanks, Greg. We appreciate it. We appreciate all your creativity, and hopefully we have good news soon, and we get the design done, and then we get the money, and maybe the back end will be quicker than the front. And it will be a forever project. So that's the good news.
Well, thank you all. I do appreciate it, and it's nice seeing your faces.
Have a good night.
Thank you, Greg.
Bye.
Nice meeting you.
You too.
All right, now we'll tradition a little bit, and we obviously had I guess it was a work session where we went over the village priorities, and the Green Policy Task Force asked to have input on our priorities, which we of course welcomed, and they sent us a list of priorities, and to me it looked like about 5 years worth of excellent priorities. So we said it would probably be best and most efficient to invite the Green Policy Task Force to join us and prioritize their priority list. So without further ado, we'll welcome some members of the Green Policy Task Force to come in and talk about the priorities.
Definitely one member. I think I probably overestimated how long the budget session would take. So I think I said 7:45 to 8 is what I said. So.
Okay.
But Judy Frimmer's here, if she'll allow herself to be promoted. Yeah. And I know Nikki's going to join as well.
Hey, Judy.
Hey, I was
How are you?
wondering how that worked. This is so fascinating. So you're an attendee and then you get invited in to be part of the pictures.
That's
Yeah.
right.
It's so interesting. Yeah.
We have a lot of power.
You do so much. So much. That's so cool.
Right. So Nikki's not on yet, and I take the blame for that because I did, like I said, I underestimated or overestimated how long it would take.
It's only 2 minutes. It's not so bad.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see.
Well, actually, no, she said she's not going to be coming on till 8. And so I might, I don't know if I can text her. Yeah. And tell her that we're on now. So
We got done a little bit early.
but she has
yeah.
another meeting. So.
Yeah.
Okay. But I'm a mediocre second.
No, we can. I
So
think we can
I'll
probably.
try.
Yeah,
I'll
we
try.
can probably start working our way through it. I'm not sure of the format on how the board wants to go through this. Obviously, the Green Policy Task Force submitted several documents. One of them is kind of a summary, and others with something with more detail, and then another is kind of a markup of the board's priorities. So I don't know which one you want to work off of, and whatever one you decide, I can put up on the screen. So
Yeah. I mean, I'll obviously let the Green Policy Task Force to talk about whichever one they're most comfortable with.
Yeah, we have a bunch of documents. I think what we did is, Brian, based on what you had requested, which is a
Yeah.
brief summary, I
Yeah.
think that's the thing we want to go through. And then we created the other items just to kind of support it and provide a much broader explanation. And Arlene, you've received a bunch of this, so
Yeah.
hopefully you've looked through it and can help me through this process.
and I can put it up on the screen as well. So if
So
that helps.
so I think, what do we have? We have priorities, which is the explanation. So that is one document.
This
And the
document-
recommendations, I think, is the thing we want, right?
Yeah, so this is recommendations document, which is this kind of the summary version of it.
Yep,
Um,
exactly. Thank you, Larry.
Yep.
Yep. So, I mean, I don't know, how do you want to move forward on this? But basically what we did is we reviewed the priorities of the village. And then what we did is we kind of added to the various items and then prioritized, which is kind of what the request was, from my understanding of Brian, as to kind of what are the main key things that we think, because we could go on talking forever. And that's not what we want to do. What we want to do is really figure out for this year, those items that make the most sense for the village, for the Board of Trustees to support, and for us to be able to support with whatever information, support from Green Policy Task Force, and any kind of specific work that we can do to help support it, and be there for the village as part of that process. So I don't know if you want, how you want to go through each one of these, but I'm happy to read it, or have Arlene read it, or how do you want to proceed?
I mean, I think I just, let's take one quick step back. So I think when we met and talked, we were talking about sort of commenting on the priorities. But then I think you guys had you sent me a very good summary of like what your priorities were in the programming. And we talked a bit also about which I think is important, what things cost money and what are budget items, right, for the board to consider. I think that's really important. Yep. So I think the three documents, there's a summary, there's sort of the longer document, and then there is the markup of our priorities. But
Right.
Maybe a good place to start, I do think, is sort of that summary document that Larry.
Yeah, which is what is up
I
here.
can't see that, by the way, even though I'm wearing reading glasses.
Oh, gotcha.
Larry, can you make it bigger?
I'm happy to walk through this if that's helpful, guys. So
That help?
so we had a whole range of different items that we had talked about, that because obviously, kind of as we know well, Larry and I, from Climate Smart Community, the actions could be in the dozens or hundreds in terms of things that need to be done to mitigate issues relating to climate change and so on. So what the committee tried to do is capture both what the village was interested in and what we thought were kind of the best ways to proceed in order for this fiscal year for us to really, really focus and concentrate on things that made the most sense. So the first one was to update the Climate Action Plan, CAP, which was to optimize inter-village resources as well for a carbon audit. So, and Larry, you could also speak to this, but from my understanding, the last work we did on a climate action plan was in 2014. So the goal now is for us to look at this broadly, also in terms of the other Rivertown villages, and see what we can do in tandem to be able to really create some definitive understanding of what our plan is and how we plan to do it, whether it's a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan that has everything from mitigating carbon emissions to other actions that relate to not just energy, but flood, and the potential issues with any kind of crisis is related to climate that we need to do and transmit to the community at large, and really make sure that we are all up to date in understanding exactly what this community, what we want to focus on, and what the community needs to know in terms of how we manage the ramifications of climate change in our community.
So I had a question which Larry could maybe update us on. We still don't have a carbon audit, right? For the village?
No, we don't. And I know this will sound like a broken record for some people, especially those on the Climate Smart Communities Committee, but task force. But we are part of a multi-municipality consortium that has received a grant from the DEC that will do a greenhouse gas inventory, which will lead to a climate action plan. And we've also opted into an optional component, which is to do a Irvington specific climate vulnerability assessment, which will also feed into the Climate Smart Communities program that we're working towards, the silver certification. I went back, that project, the grant was awarded, I think it was prior to the pandemic.
Yes, it was.
It was, right? Yeah, and they've been working through the intermunicipal agreements, which we've signed off on. And the last I heard, they still have not started the project. The last I heard, there was an update from Carla Castillo back in October, which was, we're getting closer. We almost have all of our agreements in place and we're getting ready to start the project. So that's the last I heard from her. I actually asked for an update last week and I didn't hear of an update yet. So hopefully we're getting closer, but you know, this one is number one on the list, and we're, you know, although seems like we've been dragging our feet, we've been working on it. We've been waiting for this to get going for 2 years
So
now.
Larry,
Yeah.
I seem to recall at one point, maybe this was during the bronze certification process. I can't recall when, or maybe after that, but you had mentioned there was a village resident who had expertise or experience doing a climate audit or a carbon audit, and they had volunteered to work with the village on it. Am I imagining something that never
No,
was true? Or
Yeah. Well, the audit that the person volunteered for was a building energy
Exactly.
audit.
Yep.
A facility energy audit, so a little different. And they did do it for Village Hall, and they also, looks like we're going to pursue additional buildings for the silver certification. And yes, they did do it pro bono with some minor expenses that we paid. And so we are moving forward on that, but that's not going to get us our climate action plan. That'll
right.
audit our building.
And that's not carbon audits, Mark. That's really specifically emissions from specific municipal buildings.
right, but
And
that-
identifying-
that's on the basis.
And he's not prepared or willing to do the much broader.
Right. And we have a grant in place to do that. So I mean,
Right.
it's not moving along the way we'd like it, but the grant is there. So
Yeah.
I don't think we should, step on each other with that.
Agreed.
All right. So
Right.
that's,
Yeah,
That's
and
the
we
update
just
on
have
that.
to be hopeful, and Larry's pushing it as best he can, and it's going to
Us and-
happen. It's going to
us
happen.
and I think 9 or 10 other communities,
That's right.
including the County of Westchester. So
Yes.
So is there a cost associated with this, or it's just waiting for the grant program to start?
the cost is time. And it's taking a lot of it.
Okay, so moving on to the second item, basically what the Green Policy Task Force feels strongly about, and I'm sure also the village feels strongly as well, is that with work that's been done with Larry, with the village on bronze certification and the changes and the things that we are instituting, it's really important that everybody who works for the village is aware of every one of these actions, and also of this emphasis and the importance of sustainable actions as part of their workday and every decision they make in the process. So in order to make that viable versus just to be assumptive, our hopes are that the municipal sustainable policies, practices, and commitments will be integrated with training as well as accountability, with goals as possible for all municipal employees in all departments. We don't have a specific budget to talk about how that's done, but we really feel that we can't kind of work laterally and play laterally on the side and get these certifications without the commitment and input and valuation and also incentives for participation by all village staff. So we think this is really, really an important thing to do. And it aligns with number 3, which is also what we feel, it's been talked about before, but that would so help because everybody is so overstretched and so overwhelmed, which is to have an environmental officer as part of staff, part-time. We've developed this kind of budget thought process here, but the goal of this officer would be to facilitate all these climate and environmental goals and take some of it off Larry and others back. This would be the person who could be responsible for training of all staff, and making sure again that things are indeed happening and there is compliance. And they can also institute the new programs that are also something that we would want to run through the village for on an ongoing basis. And they can also work to get the grants that based on what we've been able to attain through bronze, through the New York climate certification, the bronze certification, hopefully the silver, that this is the person who could actively work in tandem with the village to make sure we get these kinds of funds and grants that are out there, and really help so that we are less vulnerable financially and more able to get the kinds of financial support we need to make great strides and continue to move forward. So that is the second item.
Right. So
The third item.
one thing that I thought was really critical is number 2, to really have it be successful, I think there has to be some kind of a higher level guidance to each department about how to think about things and what, even perhaps provide a suggestion basis of some things to be looked at immediately or to be considered. And an environmental officer with, hopefully with municipal experience could certainly add or be a really valuable person in this process of trying to define policies and practices on a department by department basis. Otherwise, I don't know how it gets moved forward without, Larry becoming 3 people.
Yeah, no, that's exactly why, Mark, we placed it there. And as I mentioned, we felt they're really linked intrinsically.
I was going to also say, I think, we talked about this when we met, but so much of the work is based on volunteers. And it's a pretty heavy lift for volunteers. And I've just, as I started this, right, Larry, I sort of watch what you do in this arena. To me, almost seems like a full-time job on its own, but also with grants, right? There are lots of grants that can maybe offset the cost that as a village, we're not able to pursue as actively as if you have someone. So I think I support this because I do think for a lot of things, right, I feel like you have to have integration across the board. And I think it's very difficult, like on environmental issues, to think that, people who are running departments, that's just something that they all naturally know about and are ready to integrate that right away. So, I think that's an important, and I also think are there other villages, right, have been, I know that other villages are looking at this, or maybe Hastings already has done this, because it is a pretty big lift.
Absolutely. And again, the hopes would be through grants that they would more than compensate for their salary. So yeah. Any other questions before I move on to the next?
Judy, I just want to
please
put a little footnote that the reason we want it to all tie together is we don't want the climate action plan, when it finally happens, to be something that sits on a shelf, and just be part of our certification, which, gets us, the certification, and that's it. We want it all to be integrated, integration, as Arlene said, to have it, affect and direct the actions of all the village employees and the residents, so that everybody can be on the same page about, what is it we need to do to become a truly climate resilient community. That if we just can have it, I'm sorry, I'm not being very articulate. The idea of the goals and the accountability of, if you can just scroll back up a little bit, Larry, to number 2. So accountability and goals. So you can't, as the saying goes, you can't manage what you don't measure. And so, for example, if we want to reduce food waste in order to save the village money and, reduce our carbon footprint, what's the data? We'd like to have village operations more connected to the kind of data that link to the climate action plan and also can be used to measure progress in all village departments. So,
Yeah, no, that's well said, Nikki. Thank you. And I think at the end of the day, we live in different times and we need to be responsive, and we can't be responsive unless people are actively engaged, all of us, with the same goals and the same desire for the same kind of ultimate results to keep our citizens as safe and as protected with all this change as we possibly can. And we can only do that, as Nikki said and Arlene said, is if everything's integrated, all staff is trained and understands both the implications and the goals and has some accountability. Accountability is kind of key. The 4th item is Climate Smart Community Silver certification. And so Larry has just started this process again and done a phenomenal job of kind of really delineating all of the actions we need to take in order to accomplish that. And as Nikki has also said so well, the hopes are that these are not just about getting points to get certification, but these are about doing specific actions that are the best possible course of action for the municipality. So we've started this process, and Larry has started with our committee. There's a bunch of actions that Larry has kind of defined that will definitely provide us with the points we need. We have some very dedicated task force members who are now in the research phase, and we are not going to make this a barrier to success. We're going to make this a process to success. So we're looking at whatever time we need. If we need a year in order to accomplish it, that's what we're going to do. We've also Larry's just helped to reach out to the superintendent and principal of the high school to see that we can get students engaged. So it also is part of more of a broader community engagement for the betterment of the Irvington Village. So that's item 4.
And I just want to thank Larry for how beautifully he's organized it.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Larry.
Yeah, me too, Larry.
A lot of work to do.
A lot of work to do. Yeah. And you've organized it in a way that it becomes palatable, and the task force members are really excited and engaged. So
And we can use
thank you
more.
again, Larry. Thank you.
We could use a few more.
We could use a few. Yeah. And we have one. We have a
Yep.
potential one. Really
Yep.
interesting one.
Yep.
5th one. Do you want to move on with this one, Nikki? Because this is something you've been working on. So
Sure. So as you all know, we have been participating in the Energy Smart Homes River Towns campaign, which ends in the late spring. But we would like the village to communicate to residents not only that program, but all the available programs and technologies that are available to residents now to improve the energy efficiency of their homes and commercial properties and so on. And we also, we have in mind to try to involve realtors in part of that outreach, which could also be, for new homeowners, which would be a good sort of point of purchase timing thing.
And again, people who are moving to the village, I think that's such an important point that Nikki just brought up, are looking at the village differently. They're not looking at the same things that my generation looked at. So we were looking at schools for sure, but now it's much broader, and it really is important for younger, new homeowners, residents, to see that this is a village that is really committed to sustainability principles and engaged as broadly as it can. And so what is very logical within that process is for all these programs, for us to really work with the village to see how every resident and every new resident has access and understanding of exactly what these programs are and how they can access them and how they can do them. And also in some cases, even the rebates that are accorded to them as part of this process, because this is a whole new world. I've done some new changes in my home. I had no idea about some of the things I could do that based on Energy Star, based on geothermal, all of these things that actually meant that I could get rebates and incentives to do this. And we think it behooves the village to be able to be even more effective if indeed this education process is fundamental to what we do in speaking to our residents.
And the second bullet point, thanks to the board, the permit fees have been waived for the duration of the campaign. We hope maybe you'll consider extending that waiver. And there are other issues that are not in here that have to do with setbacks and sort of certain obstacles to permitting these technologies that we could get into later. But this is the brief. We were trying to keep it brief. I don't think we're succeeding very well at keeping it brief, Judy.
I'm sorry.
Nikki, if you hadn't have brought that up, I would have, in terms of some of the what amounts to zoning issues.
Right. So it has to be considered. Yeah.
Well, we're recommending that it be.
Yeah.
We're strongly recommending it.
Yes. Okay. We can move on to the next item. So as you know, we've run through the Green Policy Task Force and Anne Jaffrey Holmes a food scraps program where it's part of farmers market and there's scrap collection. This has been very successful. It has moved, very large numbers of people are now participating. And it's something that Main Street School has been extraordinary in their willingness to be the location for these, for the deposit of the scraps and collection and so on. And what is happening is there are going to be changes now through Westchester County. And our recommendation is that the village direct the Department of Public Works to develop a plan for municipal residential pickup of food scraps in association with Westchester County and the GPTF food scrap collection team, because they are going to offer this countywide. And it is an extraordinary opportunity for us not to have to worry about an area that we have food scraps deposited in, that it actually can be collected. And it is in our best interest to encourage all residents to participate in that program so we can reduce our landfills and our methane emissions and really be responsible towards change. So that's what we recommend. I think that's a really important thing for the village to consider, the Board of Trustees to consider, and how best to implement that.
And just as an aside, there's direct savings for any amount of food waste that's diverted from the trash stream,
Yes,
because, you know, it tends to be very heavy, wet material.
Yeah.
And the bulk trash stream is actually the most, you know, is quite an expensive item for the village.
Yes,
yes. Yep.
absolutely.
And it's also the hardest stuff for the incinerator to burn in Peekskill.
Yes. Okay, moving along. You want to talk to this, Nikki?
Sustainable landscaping. It's just that, you know, the village has been making strides in, you know, the gas powered leaf blower ban that, you know, is scheduled to go into effect. We'd like the village to promote the move towards healthy yards and sustainable landscaping throughout the village in village operations as well as for residents.
Any questions about anything so far? There's also a woman named Diane Lewis who has the Healthy Yards Project and has huge amounts of material and information. She's a person that we could actually bring to the board if you're interested to learn kind of about the tactics and methodology that she has developed and is working with many different municipalities across Westchester County and beyond. So it's something that doesn't have to be expensive in the long run. It's just changing, again, the way we view how we do the work that we do and take due consideration in terms of how the practices are better for the environment. And then item number 8, Nikki.
I'm sorry, Leola isn't on because she's more knowledgeable about this one. But you know, she's been a volunteer representative to the Route 9 Corridor Committee. And she requests that, you know, there needs to be more village representation on the committee, I think. Is that right, Judy?
Yes, that's exactly right. That we need someone from the village and a trustee liaison in order to work with the Department of Transportation on this in order for us to move forward productively. Yes.
And I think that process is starting already. Mitchell will be attending an upcoming meeting with New York State DOT on this topic. So I think that may mean that he's stuck transitioning into that role of liaison, whether he likes it or not. But no, he'll be taking on a role there, and I know Brian as well will be attending. But so yeah, we'll be much more actively involved.
That's fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you.
So these are the 8.
I had a quick
sustainable
request.
8. Yeah.
Sorry, for Larry. Larry, could you pull together and share to that review of the you know how there was some corridor plans for the village? There were kind of just feasibility plans.
Yeah.
I think they would be worth sharing that with Mitch so he could see some of the background review that had already taken place in the village.
Right. Yeah. So we did there's a number of documents that can be shared. I mean, ultimately, you had a resolution that was in support of it, but you had a number of conditions that you expressed. But there was a review by a separate consultant, and there's a few other documents that I can share. I'll do that. Okay.
Well, I think this was very helpful to kind of get the big 8. And I think we can figure out how we can weave these into our overall goals. And I'm guessing that probably the next work session will probably be another goal setting session. But we can digest this. We can come back if we have questions. And I think this was definitely helpful to talk through it as opposed to just email about it.
There is
And,
another document.
There's so
Leola
many
just
more.
joined on as well, just so you know.
Yeah, I shared all 3 documents with the board.
Right, yeah, so there's a lot more background information on each of these, so as well as responding to the priorities of the village. So I'm stapling them as we speak. So there's a bunch more reading that you can do, and we are always available to kind of respond to things or give you our insights or however we can help and support. We're so appreciative that you gave us this time on the agenda, and that the village is committed to this through the silver certification and through giving us the opportunity to talk through these things. So thank you so much for giving us this time.
Thank
And
you
if
all
you-
for all the time you've given us for putting this all together, to be honest.
And if you have questions on the other document, which is our comments on your goals, your priorities, feel free to contact us.
So I think the plan for the rest of the board, the plan is we'll take these recommendations and incorporate them. I know you've done sort of a draft of the board's priorities. I'll just kind of clean that up and integrate it a little bit and get them a revised set of priorities that they can be satisfied with moving forward. So we'll try to do that by the next meeting, just to get that finalized and get working.
Can we also, I'd like to ask Brenda to let us know what the impact of a sustainability coordinator position would be. Obviously, let's look at the high end of the part-time and whatever, I don't know if it's 2x or 1.5x in terms of, I guess if it's part-time, there's not associated costs, right? There's not any retirement costs, but are there any required health benefits and that kind of thing?
Yeah, we'll give you that number, but the number is more along the lines of 50% more than what you see there. So it's out-of-pocket benefits, Social Security and potential for retirement if a person joins, but not health insurance, most likely.
Right, and then I guess how that impacts our current budget model in terms of, we were near zero. Although I know that things have been maybe trickling in. I don't know. We haven't seen all the other departments yet, but I'd like to see what this number might do to that number, to our overall tax rate.
Yep.
Sure.
I also wonder, I don't know, Larry, but if initially this person is brought in as an independent contractor, so he doesn't have this, I don't know if that's allowed. I don't know anything about all of this, but I just, similar to what Arlene was talking about, Nikki was talking about, is just that it would be so helpful for the village to have the leadership. So whatever we could figure out financially in order to make it a greater benefit to the village to be able to do this is definitely something we should think about, because it would make all the difference in the world to getting this stuff activated.
And hopefully it would partly pay for itself at least.
Exactly.
Well, right, but in my mind, I know this is, I don't want to sound too bleak about it, but we've tried, the route before, if I remember in the past, of trying to do part-time and also contracted position. And, what I see is that we're going to have to put some money out, and then maybe the first year is going to be direct funding by the village. But, part of the role of that person could be to figure out how to make it more self-funding going forward. I think the first year is going to be a direct burn, though, in terms of salary. And then during that time, maybe some additional grant funding can be discovered that can go into the following year and following that.
Sure. So over time, it'll work itself out.
Well, I think, I look at it a little differently, which is that, the money that you're spending on personnel is all going to be a direct burn no matter what. if they do obtain grant funding, yes, it's grant funding that you may not have otherwise gotten, but the grant funding is used to pay for other expenses in other projects, you know. It's not going to pay for a person's salary, for example, but it'll pay for another project that you might not have otherwise done. So what you're balancing out is the investment that you're making in the personnel and whether the projects and initiatives that you're achieving are worth it to you. And that's what you're balancing. So you're not necessarily going to offset it dollar for dollar. You know what I mean? I don't think you'll ever
No,
do
for
that.
sure.
You know what I mean?
But-
So in other words, you're not going to just get money that's given to you that you can use against a person's salary. That's not the way it would ever work.
Yeah, no, but
Right,
the
so-
benefits are more long-term
It's
in
the
terms of
benefits
what it's
versus
doing
yeah.
for the municipality and how it actually is impacting and changing it for the future and making it prepared for the
Right.
future. So
For
that's a
exa-
big
yeah.
investment.
For example, if this person helps the village to increase their rate of recycling and, you know, get that amount of recycling out of the bulk waste stream, you know, that could save the village money.
Sure.
Operation.
Right, that's an example where it could start offsetting costs, but I think just in the context of talking about grants and, you know, that's not really a cost offsetter.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
Except the only question there though, Larry, is if it's things that like if flooding was a piece of or something that some of these grants or things that we did with the curbs and the changes, if these things are that ultimately the village would have to have done. And instead we were able to get grant money in order to get it done. So it's all incremental. It's not part of existing budgets, but what it does do is it avoids the taxpayers to have to pay that. It gives us the opportunity to get the grants for things that have to be done.
Yep.
And the conservation component, you know, when energy is saved over time or more fines are levied, you know, there are a lot of ways to bring money in to justify the position over time. You know, in addition to the unmeasured value, there's also, you know, financial value that the position could garner. I wondered, my apologies, I had an earlier meeting, so I joined late. In terms of the discussion with the safe walking and biking, and in particular, I've been serving, I don't know, 5 or more years on the safe walking and biking on Broadway project with the river towns. Did you go over that? Should I just listen to the recording?
Yes.
We
It's all
did,
in the
and Mitch will be attending the next meeting with the DOT.
Oh, terrific. Thank you. And if
And
you could
is
keep me
getting
in the
up to
loop,
speed,
that'd
so
be
to speak.
great. Yeah, okay. Be happy to do that.
It's Mitchell Bard, Leola.
Yeah, hi.
Anything else?
I think that's it. I think that we so appreciate the time
Yes, thank
and
you.
hope that this information was helpful and we're available, all of us, to help in any way we can.
It's very helpful. And thank you for focusing it all down. And, you know, it's much easier to work with and we'll get moving forward.
Super.
Appreciate all your support too. You guys have made a lot of things that I'm proud to brag about in Irvington relating to sustainability. So good going, Larry and the trustees and Mayor Smith.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks everybody again. I think sometimes it's so much more productive to have a conversation than to just read emails that take hours to present. Luckily, we also have the documents to refer to now, but you know, I thought this was a great idea to have you guys on, and it'll probably make sense, obviously, to work with you and come up with specs on a potential hire and figure out even what department they might work with, because there might be synergies with other departments as well. You know, so it's and where they potentially report might change the entire tone and dynamic of how successful they are. You know, I envision it, you know, to me, if it's part of, say, the DPW or part of the rec, it's a very different tenor than if it's a standalone person that's coming in to be the green czar. So I think we got to put some thought into it.
That's
And see what's worked in other places as well, obviously. So if you
Sure.
guys have some of that data too, feel free to share it or give it to Arlene, she could share it. But if we do this right, I think it can be impactful and not a token job for sure. It's so we have to figure it out.
Yeah, that's great. Makes sense.
All right. Well, thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.
We appreciate you giving all your time, not just tonight. Tonight was a drop of it, but all the thought that goes into all this stuff. So,
You got it. Our pleasure.
much.
Thank you.
all right.
Thanks so much.
Good
Take
night.
care.
Thank you, everyone.
And on that positive note,
Good night.
I will make a motion to adjourn if I can get a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Bye.
Excellent. Well, thanks, everybody. Have a great night, and we'll see you all soon.
Thank
Good
you.
night, everyone.
Right.